Let's consider an example of a quadratic equation where the discriminant is negative. For example, we have x squared plus 2x plus 5, and we'll set that equal to 0. We know that the discriminant is always b squared minus 4ac. In this case, a is 1, b is 2, and c is 5. So we have 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times c, which is 5. So we get 4 minus 20, which is negative 16. Since that's negative, we know with a negative discriminant, we only have we have 2 imaginary solutions. Why that is, we can figure out by doing the full quadratic equation, quadratic formula. So we know the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. In this case, that would be negative 2 plus or minus the square root. Well, b squared minus 4ac, we already did that. That is the discriminant. b squared minus 4ac, so let's just use that as negative 16. So we have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 16 all over 2, since a is 1. So this is negative 2 plus or minus, well, what is the square root of negative 16? Well, the square root of a negative number is imaginary. So how I think of it is that we ignore that negative and just do the square root of 16, which happens to be 4. And then to consider that, we have the square root of negative 1, which is I. So we have negative 2 plus or minus 4i all over 2. Or negative 1 plus or minus 2i. Now at this point, let's take a look at what this graph looks like. We know it's a quadratic, so it obviously looks like a U. However, since it has no solutions, the axes are something like this. Actually, let's not put in the y-axis, because I don't know where the y-axis is at this point. But I know the x-axis is over here. If the discriminant were negative, the discriminant is negative. If the discriminant were positive, our u would look something like this. And we would see that it crosses in 2 locations. But in our case, it doesn't cross. And the third option would be if the discriminant is 0, it never crosses, it would just touch and not actually cross, and it would look like that.